Just wait. There we go. All right, we are live. Hello, folks. It is I, Supreme Heretic, Drew Taylor from Bounding into Comics. It is nice to be with you again for episode 3 of our Battlestar Galactichat for the evening. I have the lovely Rosetta Allen here. Please do make sure that you follow her. Feel free to post your Twitter, Rosetta, and also a link to your channel if you like. And please do go over and love her up and subscribe because she puts out quality content. Hello, Mark. Good to see you this evening. We're just waiting on our panel. We're going to have a special guest tonight as well. We have Jack Posobiec coming in. Hopefully, I think he might be a little bit late. He might be detained at the moment, so we'll see. But we have our other esteemed buddy, the script doctor, right here. He is like top of the tops when it comes to knowing the technical side of Hollywood, and beyond that, I mean, he's a great buddy. Who wouldn't want to have this man as their friend? So,
well, thank you very much for the high praise, Drew. Rosetta, great to see you. I didn't think I was going to make it. My internet was being all wonky for the last half hour, so I'm really glad I got connected and could join us only 58 seconds late.
Yeah. Maybe the Chinese are attacking us, dude, because like my internet's been wonky. Rosetta's like the only one not having issues.
Yeah, but my internet here is like DEFCON 6. It was designed by my avionic engineer husband.
Yeah, I just like because over in Rosetta's stream, like Orange Hat was having issues and stuff. So yeah, I don't know, man. People's internets are being wonky tonight. So again, it's great to see everybody out there. Big shout out to Mark Lurseth, working hard, being a great wrench guy. He is like one of the glue guys in here.
Yeah, Mark was fun to chat with during the Bounding stream last night. That was great.
Yeah, and guys, do make sure, Script Doctor, feel free to post your link to your YouTube or your socials in the chat while we're waiting, and make sure you guys check out Script Doctor's channel as well. He just did a really good breakdown of Batwoman episode 1, and he should have episode 2 up as well, correct?
Yeah, I got all my screen caps done. I laid down my first recording, so I'm going to listen to that after the stream, make sure everything is all as it should be, all cogent and whatnot. And then it's going to take me probably about 4 hours Friday night to edit the thing, and who knows how long to render. Last week's episode took a day to render before you could throw it up.
Yeah,
YouTube is really bad with the rendering and upload times.
Yeah, that's YouTube for you, unfortunately. So yeah, we shall see how things turn out though tonight. Chat as far as with our guests and whatnot. I'm just waiting to hear back and see if anything is the matter. But I'm assuming Brian will eventually come in here too. Our fourth horseman.
Soon.
So we've got some interesting things, and I'll kind of save our Battlestar for when the rest of the panel gets here. But just some interesting news so far today. I was working on, and I don't know if it's up on the actual site yet, but I was working on a number of articles for Bounding today, and one of them was quite interesting. It was based off a story that I saw that so get this, you guys. If you haven't heard this yet and you are a fan of Star Wars, as most all of us are here, if you are a fan of the old Republic era and the expanded universe, you're about to get really excited because Korriban is now back in canon. They fixed the error that always should have been fixed when they changed the name in the first place. It's one of George's very slight missteps with things in the franchise, was changing the name of Korriban. And I am so glad that, I can actually applaud Disney for one thing. Retroactively, they brought Korriban back, and it always should have been Korriban. If you're not familiar with the planet Korriban, Korriban was the birthplace of the Sith homeworld, where the Sith Empire started. If you're really not familiar with it, its first appearance was, I believe, in Star Wars comics. And then, of course, most people know it from the very epic single-player RPG, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And if you have not played that game, I highly suggest, if you have Steam, buy that game and play it. It is a piece of gaming history. That is a piece of art. It's also when BioWare was actually still good.
Oh, the good old BioWare days.
So if you want to see BioWare at its peak, that's also another reason to play Knights of the Old Republic. But it's a great game. And the story, and of course, some of the epic reveals in that story are just amazing. So, if you're a gamer and you have not played that game, you need to play that game. That is a quintessential pillar of gaming. And, any gaming critic will tell you that. Any writer will tell you that. I mean, we're all in agreement. KOTOR is one of the best games of all time. And so is the sequel.
Well, what's great about it is how well it flows in with the rest of the story structure of how Star Wars is told out. Because that was completely inspired by how do we tell a story the same way that it's told in the original trilogy, and they just expanded on that with Knights of the Old Republic, and then the twist options, the choice options. It was just a blast to play when I was much younger.
Oh, dude, I remember the first time I played that on the original Xbox. I was so blown away. I played that. I put so many hours in that game. I had so many playthroughs of it because, it had the branching storyline. So, so you could do different things and have different playthroughs. And I remember the one thing that I hated of playing that game was when you had to go to Kashyyyk. And and Kashyyyk was a rather long planet, so you were there for quite a while. So I had to actually turn the sound off, because after a while that part did get annoying, because you sit there for 3 and 4 hours at a time and hearing nothing but Wookiee speak. It gets old.
Yeah,
it really does.
I don't know. I love the Wookiee grunting and screams.
Well, that would have been right up your alley.
Well, what I was disappointed is that I didn't learn how to speak Wookiee accurately after playing that game.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, because it was so crazy.
Yeah, and it's definitely nostalgic, because I remember right when BioWare launched online their Star Wars Old Republic game, and I got the privilege of beta testing that, and one of my friends was working on the story structure for it at the time.
Oh, nice.
And after the first 3 weeks of it, I was super disappointed with the game. Mainly because they had this great substructure for the Jedi where you were an apprentice and your companion was your teacher. And I was like, oh man, if they played out a lot of missions like this, say 20% of the game where you have a master and then you eventually evolve or level up outside of them to go do your own thing, that would have been way better. But within the first 2 or 3 missions, boom, your master's gone and you're on your own. And I'm like, oh, that's not as fun.
Oh, but didn't you hear Freddie Prinze Jr.? We don't level up. You're not supposed to try to get better. You're supposed to instantly be fated whatever position you are in life, says the dumbass.
Says the guy who has a career from nepotism.
So, yeah, and
Yep.
And boy, it's funny because, he's on Twitter still trying to beef with Fandom Menace people, with like anybody that
I don't know. I don't notice his Twitter stuff because it's hard to listen to a walking male organ talking.
Well, I don't understand. I mean, I seriously don't understand how you can be that deluded. And then, if you're going to be a professional,
Being raised in Hollywood.
if you're going to be a professional, like the last thing that you're going to do is get into it with fans. I mean, you can have a discussion with fans, but you never, ever, ever, even you could just tell them, hey, look, I politely, I disagree with you, and leave it at that. But I mean, you never go into getting into dissing or name calling your fans. That's just, bad form especially if you're a public figure like that. And unfortunately, it is very, very unprofessional of him, I thought.
Yeah.
So.
And we're tiny nobodies, but we're still working on becoming public figures, and we strive to not just attack people if they disagree. Yeah, we'll call out people who are nasty to us, but when somebody's trying to argue or disagree or debate with you, have a decent discussion with it. If somebody's posting stuff you don't like, you don't have to look.
Well, the beautiful thing about what we do at Bounding into Comics, what you guys do with your YouTube channels, is, we speak from a common sense and critical standpoint and give people an option. They're not just getting the rose-colored glasses version of one thing. So, that is absolutely so important to have, because when you consume anything, be it video game entertainment, movie entertainment, television entertainment, you want to go into it, knowing how it's received, what people think of it, and all opinions matter, and the more you know, and I think that was just very petty.
Let's be honest with all this Star Wars stuff the last couple of years. If we had all come out and say we really can't stand this movie, we think it violates the laws of the universe, it's insulting to us as what we always felt we deserved as fans. And the people making it went, we hear you, we're sorry you didn't like it. It may not appeal to everybody. We'll see if we can win you back on the next one. It would have been over.
Oh, guys, our special guest is in the house. Oh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Agent Posso himself, Jack Posobiec.
Jack, good evening, sir.
How you doing? Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Wow, buddy. So things are looking good right now for Agent Posso, eh? How's things going with the new book and whatnot? So tell us a bit about that.
I couldn't be more happy with the with the response from the fan base. We raised $30,000 in our first 2 weeks, and this is for a base of fans of mine that they're more more sort of in the political day-to-day news realm. They're not really following pop culture. They're certainly not crowdfunding graphic novels on a regular basis, but they really turned out for us. So we're looking at, I'd say at this point, we have just about our goal, at least in terms of pledges. And we're now looking at possibly even extending, because we've got more people talking about wanting to get involved.
Oh man, that is awesome.
That's awesome.
Which is wild for a first project. That's pretty wild.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But see, I like the premise of the book, Jack. Because this is something that I feel that's been missing in comics and in cartoons, anything, in modern entertainment, is just the good, fun, good guy, bad guy dynamic, and like some intrigue.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the content that's out there these days, I've noticed it's become more and more character driven. So it's focused on, oh, look how much you here's Ned Stark or Jon Snow. You know how much you love Jon Stark or Jon
Stark. That's great.
I'm a little tired. I was up a little early this morning. We have a morning show now. I ran a Game of Thrones blog for 5 years. I know what I'm talking about. But no. Or we're Daenerys. What's going on with her? Oh no, gotta check it out. Or here's Captain Marvel. You guys are gonna love Captain Marvel now. Isn't she the best? Just look at how she takes on men.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're just sitting there this whole time going like, yeah, what's this story about? Why should I like this character? Is she what does she stand for? Are there any morals or values going on?
Absolutely.
I'm not saying all content is like that, but so much of big studio Hollywood content is like that these days. And I would say that as far as the comics world goes, obviously Joker was not like that, and Alita Battle Angel wasn't really like that. But as far as the big studio productions, that's really what we saw.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I was going to ask a little question because you touched on the difference in those who are in pop culture stuff and doing what we do versus those who are more political. And in my life, I've been involved in a lot of it. And for some of us, we're kind of slanting away because we realize more and more that the things we dislike in both sides of politics are the problem in pop culture now. And that's part of why it's becoming that way in politics, because stories on both sides, but more so on the left, are becoming so much more about politics that they're pushing it and propagandizing everything constantly to the point that pop culture is infesting the minds in unhealthy ways. And it's getting worse and worse.
This is really something you see that I wouldn't even say it's the left, it's the far left. Right.
Yeah. And that when I said right and left, I'm talking about the ultra extremes.
Because I used to remember a left wing believing in freedom of speech, believing in equality, believing in everyone having a right to an opinion, right? Those used to be being anti-war, right? Those used to be leftists, or that used to be considered liberal ideals. That still are by and large. And yet you've got this whole group of new people who I think the actual numbers of them are probably very small, of like people who are actually like quote unquote just that far left. But the number of people that will placate them, the number of people that'll go along with it because they don't want to get caught up in this sort of mob rule, mob mentality, is far greater. And really anyone who puts their head down at this point and says, oh, well, I just don't want to get involved. You're actually playing into it at that point if you're not standing up to this people.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's mob rule. It's mob decision-making, mob mentality. And if you're not standing up to the mob, and if there aren't a group of people sort of locking arms and saying, no, that's not the way we do things, we're going to treat people as individuals, we're going to hear what everyone has to say, we're not just going to demonize those of people that, we decide are on the other side from us, that's going to take us to a really scary and stupid place.
It is becoming scary, just like how much people like me and Drew, people who are female, who are minorities, who are in the gay communities and stuff, how much we're gone after if we defend white people, if we defend men, if we
defend common sense.
Really dangerous, because we need to just realize that we're all people in the end, and there's more we have in common than against each other.
And there's value to different opinions. I mean, regardless of political ideology, if, say, for instance, I'm a leftist center person, but I by default value the opinion of someone who may be a little bit more to the right of me because maybe they thought of something I haven't. And if we both have the same type of goal, but different means of getting there, you work together to compromise and hopefully achieve that goal, because a lot of our goals from both sides of the normal parts of the party align. It's just the methods of achieving them. And that's where discourse and debate happens. And you can't have that when one side is trying to silence another, or one other side further out is just going crazy and hitting up everybody, including themselves.
Well,
it's crazy. So for 5 years, right, I ran a game when I was doing my Game of Thrones blog, like from 2012 through 2016, I never had anyone ask me what side I was on or what my political beliefs were. I was just talking about, hey, this story's good, that story's bad, right? And I was really making fun of the TV show a lot. And we've come to this place where for some reason you feel the need where you have to label everyone. You've got to put someone in a little box that's either over here, over there, or in the middle.
Stay in your box.
And you have to stay in your box, right? You can't go and say, oh, well, I want to, you know, go over here a little bit, or I'll go there a little bit. No, stay in your box. So one of the things that I did once, and I'll bring this up just by way of kind of explaining how it's okay to you know, go out of your box. But the internet lost their minds. We kind of broke the internet a little bit a couple of years ago when I went to an escape room, just a little DC escape room, you know, just a lot of fun. So it was myself, and then there was a Bernie Sanders supporter, Cassandra Fairbanks, that I was hanging out with. There was a guy, Jack Murphy, who's kind of from like the manosphere, like a men's rights guy. And my wife came, and then also Chelsea Manning.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. And so we posted a picture. And like Will Chamberlain, who's like a recovering libertarian.
Yeah, that's
fun out because we thought it would be a cool group to just go and not talk about politics and go to a fun game room. But I kid you not, the left went insane. And they went after Chelsea more than anything else. They said, how could you be in an escape room with those people? And Chelsea's like, you know, I was in the military. I've been in prison. Like, I can hang out with whoever I want. And they like forced her to, you know, explain herself.
Well, look what happened.
It's just so bizarre.
Look what happened with Ellen and the picture that she had with President Bush. I mean, it's absolutely like madness how they went after her. And here's, you know, here's a gay woman, you know, and she is notoriously, you know, pretty medium left at least.
Mm-hmm.
She's hanging out with somebody that's conservative, you know. I mean, and she got lambasted for it by people that are supposed to be the quote unquote tolerant left, and it's like, come on, man, you know, she happened to be in the same space with a guy, share some ideas, and talk like people. It wasn't like, you know, it was some sort of like political get together, but they can't get past that, man. They don't realize, you know, people can just be people.
Yeah, it's simple as that. You know, I don't know the politics of, you know, Bob Kane, or Stan Lee. I've never asked what party he was in or who he voted for. And guess what? I don't care.
Right.
You know?
Right,
really
exactly.
Because that's not what
I adored Stan Lee because he wrote great stuff and he was for free speech and expression.
There you go. Yeah, see?
That's how it was. I didn't care what his personal beliefs were beyond that.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, unfortunately, we're stuck in that rut now where, you know, it's like this thing where it's almost like that old movie Colors where, you know, you're walking in territories and somebody will walk up to you, be, hey, what are you claiming? You know, it's pretty right. Much where we're at.
Well, I also like that line from The Wire where they go, you know, all this over a couple of corners.
Yep. You know, it's crazy, dude. It's just it's sad to see, but
you know, I think we're getting to a point though where people are just kind of outraged. And there's a media model right now that exists that says, you know, the more you get outrage clicks, you get rage clicks, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's you know, and you see this. You look, and by the way, I'm not part of it. I'll say that on both sides. Like, you see Fox News doing this, you see CNN doing this, right?
Oh yes.
You know, and it's just rage clicks. It's just rage clicks. Instead of talking about some of these wider, more or even deeper issues, it's just, this is how we're going to get the other side, or this is the crazy thing that happened today, and you better check it out. And then you've got to demonize the person on the other side instead of trying to meet them, you know, as a human, right? First, you disagree with them, you laugh at them, but it's demonization And because so many people are leaving media, it's become like an ad model for a lot of these places.
Yeah, one thing I want to say, like really quickly, guys, those of you that are watching out there, whichever way you lean, be it, if you're a classic liberal, if you're libertarian, if you are conservative, go and watch One American News. I can tell you guys right now, okay, there's a huge difference between watching a program on One American News as opposed to watching Fox News, as opposed to watching CNN, most definitely, and then propaganda, MSNBC. You can stay away from all those. Just go to One American News and watch it.
Well,
I mean, you see our boy Jack over there?
So I was...
Go ahead. Just makes it so different is that we don't do panels. So you know how like the other three cable networks, they do those panels where it's like someone sort of tee off a headline and then here's three people who are mad about it.
Or they do the panels where it's like 4 people against 1.
We don't do panels at all. We deliberately don't do panels at all. I mean, we're using the old CNN model, the old SportsCenter model of here's like 15 stories or a dozen stories an hour, and we're just going to give you boom, boom, boom in, 3 to 4 minutes. Here's the headline, situation, action, outcome, who, what, where, when, why, how. There's like really basic stuff, and we're out. And so we'll get accused of, let's say, well, you just said something that was pro-Trump. And I said, no, all I did, I quoted what he said. He said something, we quoted it, we explained a little context, and we moved on to the next thing. We didn't editorialize on it one way or the other. And by the way, and so I had someone on the left who was, that I talked to that I'm friendly with. And I remember she said recently, she said, well, did you cover this? And I played her the video of how we covered something that Adam Schiff, he's like a big Democrat congressman. And I said, how'd you cover that? And I showed the video. And it's like, Adam Schiff came out today and he had this to say. And here's some context about what he's talking about. And we'll see what happens later.
Yeah.
That was it.
We need more straight up, because this is the weird thing is this is pop culture stuff people are getting so psycho about. Now, I was gone from most of my accounts most of last month. I was dealing with family stuff. We had a celebration stream when I came back, a big marathon. Yeah. This was coming home from deaths in the family, stuff like this. And I'm not even political in most of my stuff. I barely talk about some pop culture stuff on occasion. It's mostly art on my streams. But I'm getting these people flooding in to the point where I'm having to throw wrenches to people who didn't even have them in the chat so they can block them, because they're coming in cursing me, cursing disabled people, cursing the family members that died, because I've stated an opinion they didn't like.
Wow.
Yeah. It was crazy, Jack. I saw that happen.
It makes no sense. So it's so insane.
I don't even actually. I was talking to a friend of mine just the other day over dinner, who she said she'd really appreciate it because I had her back a couple of years ago over something, and I honestly barely even remembered it personally, but she had apparently posted this meme that was going around when she was in college, and this meme that was going around of her, I guess this guy who was running for like student body president or something. And I won't say what the schools are or whatever, but it was a town that sort of had 2 big colleges in it. And his meme was, if you vote for me and I'll build a wall between the colleges. Like a riff off of, sort of contemporary politics, and they have a rivalry with the other college. Yeah, he was accused of being racist. And then because she posted the meme on Twitter, was enduring doxing, was enduring people making death threats, was enduring people showing up to her dorm, and it took the school weeks to even respond. And when the school finally responded, they said, we have counselors available if you're interested.
And this is the stuff that's insane, and I have seen it from both sides. I've had threats from both sides over my life. The thing is, I always laugh at is when they always try to pull out you're just racist and stuff. Racist to who? I'm mixed race and I'm on the board of a black church.
Yeah, how yeah, I want
Racist
to
to
know.
who?
Right.
I want to know again how I'm racist. It's funny, Jack. I actually got called the first time I encountered that craziness was I think last year when on Twitter I made a tweet when like here in my town, because I live near Cleveland, the Indians were decided to change their logo. They bent the knee and changed their team logo to a block C instead
Oh,
of the
don't even
old.
start me on removing tribal stuff because of a bunch of white liberals decided to tell Indians that it's offensive.
Yeah,
When most all natives don't mind the fact we like them.
yeah, and the,
And
and the
I
thing
can
was,
say that as card carrying Sue.
yeah, the thing
We like them.
the thing was they came at me like the minute that I said, "Hey, look, this has been traditionally like our team logo for well over 100 years, and it's actually in tribute to a Native American player,
Yeah.
Lewis Alexis, that played for the team." So I was like, I don't understand how this is offensive to people, and I got all these people like it's an offensive caricature. And if you
I could show them offensive.
All caricatures are offensive. Come on, that's what caricatures are for.
They
That's what
forced
it
a
is.
school in North Dakota that was on the edge of the reservation that was over 95% Lakota students to change the name of the mascot for the school from the Fighting Sioux because it's a racial mascot. The school is Sioux.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I get people like the minute that I explained it, they're like, it doesn't matter. It's racist. And if you like it, you're racist. They literally said, if I like it, I'm racist. I'm like, how am I a
Why
racist,
would they
man?
not like my streams?
I am a minority.
They would not like my streams because I'm calling my interviews one-on-one scalpings.
Right. Actually, that's still, and that phrase is even used in politics and media to say, "Oh, you got a scalp." They go, "Oh, we got collected a scalp," right? Well,
That term did not start with natives, but we're damn sure going to use it.
Right. But at some point, to your point, that some of these white liberals are going to come. That's who it really is. It's white. Like this is all driven by white people. That you will get to the point where anyone who said that will be called a racist because they'll say, "Oh, that's racial, clearly racial terminology."
Yeah, I don't
Historical fact to that, if I can interrupt for just a sec, Drew.
Yeah, go ahead.
A little historical fact to the scalping is it did not start with natives. It wasn't part of our culture. It started because it was done to natives, and the tribe that they did it to, the Blackfoot, believed that what you lose in this world you can't use in the next. So they started doing it back to them.
Interesting.
So it didn't start with us. We just took the ball.
Yeah, again, I mean, people have been doing messed up stuff to each other for as long as there's been people. They just
exactly.
have. They just have.
But see, like, I find it funny though. Like everything's so like so hyper crazy and all that. But I want to know like some interesting background about how you came up with your character for Agent Poso. And I know that from a little bit from knowing you now, like it's kind of like based on you, but man, how like what experiences and stuff did you really pull from to put the essence of the character together?
Oh, okay, wow. Believe it or not, actually, it was Brett Smith and Chuck Dixon who reached out to me and about doing this project, and they sort of already had the idea of a sort of espionage, Mission Impossible, A-Team kind of, team up as a way to sort of walk through geopolitics and different international issues that are going on, and even domestic issues, I suppose, in our world, but come at it from a different angle. And so the character, as we were just talking about caricatures, it's very much a caricature of myself in terms of I am a former United States intelligence officer. I was in the Navy doing that. I served one deployment in Guantanamo Bay in the interrogation cell, but I also spent many years deploying to and from particularly East Asia. So just take your pick of any country in East Asia, and you can imagine where we'd be operating. And so having that experience, that international experience, then plus I lived in China actually for 2 years in Shanghai, and then I've got a wife who's also in it, and she was born in the Soviet Union, and so this mix of like the all-American guy who worked in intelligence with the former Soviet who's now sort of come to the U.S. and become a citizen and all. And then mixed with kind of a heavy, and then a computers over the phone computer gal who, by the way, believe it or not, are so Cassandra Fairbanks, who's playing our computer like hacker intel site / person, actually used to be involved with WikiLeaks, and
nice.
So she's someone who actually met Julian Assange in the embassy several times, was probably the last reporter to actually meet with him, and so is someone who in real life has a lot of ties to something that we've all heard about and something that we've all focused on, but it's part of her own experience that she's gone through living in this world where one of the things that she's constantly having to deal with is this argument over whether or not Julian Assange is a despicable, evil hacker who's stealing government secrets and aiding terrorists, or is he a 21st century type of journalist / blogger who's uncovering corruption in Western governments and providing information to the people, or whistleblower, I guess, essentially, as Edward Snowden refers to himself. And there's another guy who kind of puts himself in that same vein. And so it's that really interesting question of what is good, what is bad in the 21st century, and as we are interacting with this new technology, how is that technology changing us back, and how is the internet writ large changing our society and the way we function? I mean, just look, the four of us are in completely different parts of the country, and yet we're all live talking.
Well, yeah, and see, I find that really fascinating because it's just everybody corresponds like so well in some way to the characters. I think that is so cool because when you have a base connection to real life people, characters can really pop and resonate, and that's so good because you can build and bond with your audience in the storytelling that way. And I really think that that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that having it based on real people, that gives you something to draw from, and it also creates a more well-rounded character. We know that in the real world, people aren't one-dimensional. People are feeling beings. People have differences of opinion. People are full of contradictions, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You might feel one thing here and another thing there, and say, "Oh, you're hypocritical." I say, "Well, no. I mean, I'm a human, actually, and I have differences of opinion in different areas, and that's okay because that's also what makes us human."
That's a term people all think is really wrong. Is hypocrite.
Yeah.
Now, do you guys plan to turn this into like a very long-term series, like a certain number of issues, or how are you going to work that out?
So in an overall broad sense, I mean, we've got enough material in terms of the world building we've done, and I guess the rogues gallery of villains that we've put together, that we know we're not going to be able to fit everything into one volume. And so, I mean, we've easily got enough material to pull from for, I would say, about a dozen or so, just going off. And if we were to do that, and hopefully we're able to achieve that number, essentially what we do, I call it like layers of the onion. So the first book, it's got that core of a beginning, middle, end to the first book, but there's also clues that kind of bring you through the first movement of a story arc. So that story arc might last, the first 3 or the first 4 issues, and then another movement would start. So there's little clues and bits and pieces that, as you peel back, as the team peels back what's going on in the first one, that doesn't pay off until the second, or some things don't pay off until the third. And then meanwhile, there's a grander overarching story that isn't really culminated until the final, the final issue.
Vertical integration storytelling, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a master stroke. I like it, Jack. That is awesome. And I remember a week or two ago, when you were on the Bounding stream, dude, you just have so many awesome personal stories to tell that people are going to have a lot of fun reading this comic. They really will.
So can we get a hint as to who the enemy of Aegis is? Is it like an opposite of Spectre? Is it like called Gorgon or something? What do we get to expect with Aegis and their adversaries?
So there is essentially an organization that's, I mean, it's like, Spectre, in the sense that there is an international focus to it, but it's not so much. I mean, they're not meeting up at Davos in a secret bunker or palace or in the mountains or something like that. Though, I mean, there might be palace in the mountains at one point. But it's more about the different nodes and different cells that they have in high positions of power that they're able to leverage for different operations. And Aegis doesn't actually know about this yet. They've just got kind of the broad senses of it. So I kind of liken it to have you ever heard that old story about the 3 blind men trying to describe an elephant?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's kind of like that. So in one issue, it's, oh yeah, there's a tail, another issue, no, it's like the long thick leg, it's like a tree, and the other one, no, there's a trunk on the front or a big ear, but you never quite grasp, because you're blind, so you never quite grasp a sense of what the overall is until you put all of the episodes together, all the issues together. And so there'll be different geopolitics that at play in each issue. So for the first one of the big issues that we wanted to get into was climate change, actually. And so one of the first facets of this organization that we're going to be faced with, without even realizing that it's a facet of an organization yet, is eco-terrorism, and this idea of these people that are so radicalized that they not only believe the world is going to end in just 5 years, but they actually have to hasten the world's end, at least in terms of the population, so that by bringing the population of humans down, that hopefully that the planet will then be more sustainable going forward through a climate change event.
Well, that sounds like a pretty great and thrilling plot, and also one that can spark some proper debate and discussion about how to tackle a situation like this. So I have a question with regards to like the main characters. One thing that always kind of gets us really related to characters when we're watching a story is that they either have a flaw or a character trait that's kind of endearing or relatable. So what sort of thing can we expect to see from Agent Posso that's going to get new readers or normies or people outside of this genre to fall in love with you guys?
Well, I mean, I really think that, I mean, and I don't know if it's necessarily a flaw in a sense, but it's a vulnerability. Yeah. If that's better. So sort of that every great hero, this goes back to Shakespeare, every great hero has a vulnerability. And in that, it's going to be his family. So in this, Agent Posso and Agent Tay are going to be married. They do it right on the cover. You can see our little son is there. And so that idea of him being on the front lines with his wife, and the tension of trying to raise a child in the midst of all this that's going on, I think is going to be something that's very relatable, but also something that will take people out of the normal, okay, we're driving, high-speed car chase through the streets of India, and going through the slums, but also at the same time maybe trying to arrange a babysitter for Friday night.
Or make sure the kid's properly strapped in the car seat during this high-speed chase, that type of thing.
Well, maybe. I don't know if we're going to the car seat while we're getting shot. Actually, we were talking about as a potential stretch goal being, what happens if work comes home, and maybe it's Agent Tanya Tay and the baby with Agent Posso not even involved, and they're just going grocery shopping, and like some assassin has found them in the supermarket.
Oh wow.
Well, yeah, that's great conflict because it's like you got to protect yourself, protect your kid, and protect the innocent bystanders from crossfire. So,
right, and
no, that's a great,
also
compelling
try to
flaw and
protect
vulnerability.
Try to protect your secret identity.
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of
My favorite part, by the way, of secret identities has always been when like the villain knows the secret identity, and hero knows that the villain knows, but they're in some public place where they can't reveal it, and then the villain's just kind of needling the hero about this. I love that stuff.
Oh, that's dramatic irony at its best.
That's a good beat. That's
that's
a good
one thing
beat.
I hate. There's that one Spider-Man, I think it was Spider-Man 3, where he just pulls his mask off, and it's like it's no big deal. Oh yeah, this is what I look like. Who cares? I said, no, you're killing it. You're defeating the whole purpose of having a secret identity.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that's usually a tension break moment. It's one of the things a lot of us in Hollywood really hate when they're dealing with superhero movies, specifically with like the MCU, how there's not a single character there that has a secret identity. Even Spider-Man's now going to be questionable. And we're all just like, no, the secret identity, that's where you get your drama. That's where you have people trying to make your choices and are in impossible situations, and people are leaning forward going, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And the MCU is like, no, we're not going to worry about that right now. We're just going to go somewhere else. And
yeah, I always said that when Dexter started going downhill when they killed off Rita at the end of season 4, spoiler, but that it took away that tension of him trying to have a stable relationship while also being this like quasi serial killer, and it just sort of killed the show for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sure. It was to a degree, we had a death like that, and we're gonna transition into quick BSG chat here in a second, but we kind of had that in our in BSG, Jack, if you remember when they killed off Kara. Spoiler.
I mean, do you think that really changed the entire tenor of the show?
It did initially because when she returned later, it just threw it off. It was just not the same.
Yeah, so I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm not personally someone who was really bothered by Kara's death and rebirth. But I've talked to a lot of BSG fans and read a lot of BSG literature in terms of people who have been critical of this, who to them, it just completely changed what the show was. And it was absolutely not something that they could be on board with.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, I mean, she had the typical Starbuck moments after that too, but it was like, yeah, it just kind of it sucked a lot of the life out of it for me.
Well, because it felt so unauthentic.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Completely unexplained.
You can go to when they remove or bring characters back, whether it's through death or characters that leave the shows and come back. And I could go back to my Star Trek stuff because I do that a lot. I understand she wanted out of the show, but they ended Dax horribly, and it kind of killed the last season for DS9.
Yeah.
And
Carrie wanted to come back later. She just wanted to do a movie project.
Yeah.
Well, she went through up and downs on whether she liked being in that or not, and then she went to Becker. So, but again, she's also from the same city I live in right now, so she's a good person. She just got lost for a little bit,
She did. Like, because she is a huge Star Trek fan beforehand. I remember like just in grade school when they were shooting DS9, one of my dad's friends got me to go down to San Francisco and see everybody, and they were having a blast. And it was like the light of my life, like great. And then literally, I think it was a season later, they kill her off, and she went silent about it. And it wasn't until I think about a year after that show, that episode aired, she was then on Becker with Ted Danson.
Yeah.
And then this chick from a really lousy science fiction show called Deepwater Black came in and replaced her.
And she wasn't good for the role. And that's nothing against her. She didn't fit as a Dax.
Well, it's a restart of a character.
Out there, just
Gotta look at with Voyager, because I understood Kes wasn't as popular, so they removed the character, switched her for 7 because they wanted the sex appeal. They wanted to bring more people in to watch. But the episode when they brought Kes back was ridiculous.
Yeah, they
really screwed up the entire character and
they boned that one. I remember that episode. They boned that one big time, man.
They turned her into a self-righteous, horrible, murderous prima donna bimbo.
Yeah, pretty much.
To what you're just saying though about her being a huge Star Trek fan, and I think that's actually one thing that really turns me off about the MCU and the actors. I mean, there's so much, but it's never occurred to me until just now, is I don't really get the sense that many of the main actors are like fans of Marvel.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Bradley Cooper's not.
That's the thing. Most of the people
sure.
in Marvel right now don't seem to actually like comics and don't like the characters they play. And they don't understand that it's a pro-liberty storyline. They run around constantly defending absolute full socialism and speech police. And you're like, do you even realize what you're acting in, or are you that dead to the world around you?
It's bizarre. It's so bizarre. And we're just told to, oh, you're gonna like these actors because look, they kind of look like comic book counterparts and
there's a lot more than looks in life.
Whatever happened to doing full-on role research when you're on camera talent and you actually you actually do check out the source material?
Well, that was RDJ when he was doing Iron Man with Favreau. Every day that morning, he was like tearing up the script and saying, it's not like the guy in the comics, let's try and rewrite it. And that's what they ended up doing. And Jeff Bridges even reinforced that, saying it was like an improvised movie. We had to rewrite it like that morning and then shoot that afternoon because things just were not lining up to, the comics and what they were trying to achieve. And that was kind of lost as each entry kind of went on and on and on, because the actors are like, well, I don't have to do the research, the writers and the producers, and they'll tell me what I have to do. And
you don't have the heart behind your work if you don't understand it. I'm sorry, whether it's a role or not, whether you agree with it or not, you need to try to really be able to empathize and understand the character you're playing, good or bad. Otherwise, your spirit doesn't project through what you're playing.
Well, that's a big problem with MCU and DCEU movies is you have to have reverence for the source material, because you have to understand the fandom that you're going to speak to from that role. So if you don't have that perspective and you don't understand that, you're not gonna properly convey the things that the fandom is, with the things that entertain them, the things that they're, sort of going to the movie to see. And
I would even take that to the next level, because everyone says like, oh, well, you just want me to do that because that's what the fandom says. I said, no, take it back. The fandom exists because there was something good about the quality of the source material that attracted a fandom in the first place, right? So the fandom wants that repeated because that's the core essence of
that is the whole thing they're missing.
And so if you're
reason
saying,
you have
well, you just don't like it because it's not the same, I said, no, we don't like it because that's what made it good. That's why it was good.
It's the same argument I get in versus I don't even like Enterprise, but it still at least had some of the cerebral elements of Star Trek. The problem with the Star Treks they're making now is they're not intellectual, they're not cerebral, they're not thought-provoking, they're popcorn, they're action, they're superhero.
Well, Rosetta, hold on.
That stuff, but it was a cerebral. It was all about thinking, intellectual, literature, and stuff in it.
I do got to say, I like Jolene Blaylock. No lie.
No, I'm not saying that. My problem with the modern Trek stuff is it would be fine if they didn't try to tie it to Trek. It doesn't fit with Star Trek because it doesn't follow what the universe stands for and what it was about.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Star Trek was the best when it was about the human condition and its exploration. I know there's a lot of YouTubers here that keep on saying, "Oh, we want to see more Star Trek, but take place after TNG," and I'm like, that's not necessarily what it's about. That would be making Star Trek about the state of the galaxy when it's actually about exploration. So I'm like, there's 11 other ships alongside the Enterprise in '66. Why not take us to one of those crews and see what part of the galaxy they were exploring in their adventures? Because it will never violate canon, and you can have fun with it and do what you want. And it doesn't matter about, like, are the Romulans an ally or not? Are the Klingons an ally or not? It does not matter. It's all about what new species can we explore? What questions does that exploration bring up? How does it reflect to us as a species? Maybe there's other ideas we haven't addressed. That's what made it entertaining and made it last in syndication for decades until it blew up again.
And even the cheesiest episodes, with the exception of Spock's brain, had good morals behind them. Sorry, I had to throw that little exception in.
And now, Drew, isn't that, and maybe you're more up on than me, but isn't that what they're trying to say with this new BSG series? That it's not a reboot, but it's a sidequel, but it's not going to refute canon. I mean, what are they even talking about with this thing?
Okay, so here's what I've gleaned so far out of the stories that I've done and what I found out. So, talking to this guy, so chat, if you're not familiar, if you look me up on Bounding Into Comics, you can see the BSD stuff that I've written. I've got a story up there about
and do it because he's awesome.
The gentleman that does Mr. Robot, Sam Esmail, is doing the reboot for the BSG series. Now we call it a reboot, but it's technically not. Because in the interview with the Hollywood Reporter, they asked him, and he said, no, it's mainly going to be something that is based in the Ron Moore universe. So you're dealing with the 2004 universe lore and mythos, but what's going to happen is they haven't exactly pinned down the direction they're going, be it future or backward. And again, you start to get into that discussion now. Is it more beneficial to go first Cylon War, or do you go, because I don't see, based on the ending of the 2004 show, that when you have the time jump to spoilers alert, when you have the time jump to 150,000 years later, present day, okay, I don't see how that works going into the future, because then you get into a whole different premise. You're just like, it's not BSG, it's just like Earth Defense Force. So you need to, I think, go first Cylon War if you want it to be like authentic. I almost think they have to go there, Jack.
It's quite possible, but the only news I've heard since their last live stream is that people are just calling it Battlestar. They're not using Galactica.
Interesting.
And I'm taking that as a hint, but I have no confirmation yet at that point. That every conversation has been like, oh yeah, it's this new Battlestar series. We don't know what's going to happen yet.
Oh, that could be fun. You don't want to shorten the initials when the typed up hyphenation's already BSG.
Well, see, the thing is, though, if they do, Kronos, I would like to see that too. But the only problem with that is, again, if you go into the future, if you go from the time jump standpoint, from the 150,000 years later to our present day now, where we're at, again, it looks more like Earth Defense Force, because you wouldn't exactly be building Battlestars, and we're not colonies, we're, countries. And that's what they left off at, presumably, in the show, was they weren't going for a colony society. It was just, whatever we have present day, which is this. So, yeah, it wouldn't work. So you would have to do something based in the first Cylon War.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily do first Cylon War, but and we kind of saw a little bit of that with some of the spin-offs of the last BSG, with like they did Blood and Chrome, and there was that Razor, the web series. But you could easily, instead of making it about Adama, Bill Adama's character, you could focus on the president of the colonies. You could focus on the political, machinations of what's going on during the war. I mean, you could expand the scope in so many ways that and maybe there's a little teaser where you meant somebody off to the side goes, Galactica's in quadrant 4, and that's just like in the back of it.
Right, yeah. It's mentioned. It's like the good plot device in there. And
it's kind of like how in the actual very first episode of the miniseries, you when Rosalind finds out that she has cancer, and you look up and in the viewport, and you actually see the Serenity fly by.
Oh yeah, I didn't know if you caught that, dude. Yeah, they have that.
Oh yeah,
they have
Posso's
that in
on
there.
The level. Poso is on the level. I mean,
that was
I
such
have throwbacks to the original.
that was such an awesome Easter egg too, dude.
Because it's the same VFX team.
Yeah, that was the most awesome Easter egg that there ever was in that show, was the Serenity flying by.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
I've always said links to universes, clearly.
Yeah, Kronos. I remember that. When they had that at the end, it was interesting when they Baltar and Six saw their counterparts in the corridor there, like near the end in the final episode, because they were like, "You can see them." It was like just such a great moment. But yeah, I think I wouldn't mind seeing first Cylon War. Here's why I think first Cylon War works, because of the fact that there's a video game out that I actually play right now, Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. You can get it on Steam, guys. It's $39.99, I believe. But they have it's set during the first Cylon War. You have different classes of Battlestars. You have all kind of different ships that we didn't get to see in the show. It's in the Ron Moore timeline. And you already have this game running. So you could have the video game running concurrently with the series, and even have content to draw from back and forth. So that's another reason why I think they're going to jump into that era. I mean,
we'll definitely allow for double monetization of the show and the gaming platform
exactly
if they're fully connected with the Peacock streaming service. I don't know about those litigations.
Yeah, well, the thing, I was gonna say, the thing is, like, UCP owns the they own obviously the rights to the game and stuff too. So Slytherin, which is a very small development company, developed the game, but of course it's had all done under Universal Cable Productions that handles BSG.
Oh yeah, if it's under one parent company and they want to end up, I guess, pairing the two new properties together, I don't see anything bad for it. I do see one conflict being like the production house that makes the game might end up having a rights issues from the game to the show, because even though it is under the parent of Universal, because it is still a contracted party writing the game, it's not exactly fully connected. It's kind of the same situation between Secret Hideout and CBS and Anos's lawsuit. If Anos doesn't specify that Secret Hideout is the perpetrator, CBS is going to be absolved of any wrongdoing, even though they are buying the product from Secret Hideout and having it released.
Yeah, true.
And I'm really hoping that doesn't end up being the case, because there's a lot of us on the writing side of things who have our own IP that we're shopping around, and theft does happen. It's actually a lot more rare than people like to think in Hollywood, because most people just don't care enough to steal. But when it does happen, the hammer comes down, and only a handful of people have ever won IP cases, because ideas are a lot harder to copyright in U.S. law, especially dealing with international creators.
Yeah, real quick, Jack, did you hear about that? Did you hear about the that Star Trek Discovery kind of bit off of a guy that was an indie game developer, and there was an indie game on Steam, and they just totally snagged a bunch of concepts out of it and threw it in Star Trek Discovery?
Wow.
Yeah, they just legitimately bit off the guy, and he took him to court and went to court. And of course, CBS with the corporate attorneys, they ruled against the guy. But it's like, it was clear as day the stuff that they stole from him as far as concepts and stuff, because they didn't even try to hide it. They just literally took stuff from his game, stuck it in there without even asking him permission or anything.
They straight lifted it.
Yeah, it was. The creature that was in the Discovery early on in the first half of the first season, that sort of helped the ship jump. It was called a tardigrade. They even kept the same name, and the guy's game was called Tardigrades, and it was based on that creature. Well, they still called it a tardigrade. Star Trek Discovery did.
It was a ridiculous ripoff by ridiculous people unwilling to do their own work.
I mean, that dumbfounded me, Jack. Seriously, I was like, I about fell off my chair when I saw the comparison of wow, they actually seriously took this dude's material.
Yeah, and what's sad is that I did read over some of the transcripts of the court case and everything that CBS was doing as a defense, and unfortunately, I can see how the judge got convinced, because CBS's defense was pretty much acting like, well, we just bought this thing, we didn't create it, which is technically true. Secret Hideout is what, quote, created it, stole it, allegedly, in my opinion. So that's probably why the judge was able to side with it, because the accusation isn't to the correct party. It's basically like you go to a used car dealership, you buy a car, and then someone comes up to you and says, hey, that was my car that was stolen from me a week ago. And you're like, well, I didn't steal it, I just bought it. And if you, as the now owner of the stolen property, don't cooperate with the authorities, then you're in trouble. But if you do, you're kind of absolved. And then it's down to the authorities getting the person that stole the car and sold it to the used car dealership and all those people involved. So that's why I'm really concerned. And I am trying to get a hold of Anas and say, hey man, I want your appeal to succeed, but you have to make sure that your lawyer specifies Secret Hideout as the one that's a culprit, and then CBS as kind of like a support system to it, because otherwise the judge is going to rule against you again, and no one basically is just going to backfire, because then CBS can countersue for defamation because he's pointing his finger at the wrong person technically. Yeah. And I don't want him to go through that, because any type of misstep that can happen in this type of case is going to have repercussions technically within California, because that's where the ruling is going to be.
Oh, but absolutely.
It could expand out to other states that have their own little smaller studios that work with Hollywood and work internationally. So I really hope that that he's able to expand that in his appeal, and then put Secret Hideout on notice and let CBS basically choose, okay, do we want to support Secret Hideout that we know stole this thing allegedly, or do we want to just say, okay, we're going to step back a little bit, we're going to get behind Anas and just claim ignorance and just let Secret Hideout kind of implode as a result of this, because that would be the smarter strategic way to win, in my opinion.
CBS is going to do whatever they can to save their behind. So even if it means throwing Secret Hideout under the bus, that's going to happen.
Which they should do, yeah.
But I just want to see Anas get something in his appeal. So my fingers are crossed to him. But But no, Jack, that was crazy what happened. But back to Battlestar though, guys. Like, yeah, I'm fully convinced that they're going to go first Cylon War. I mean, just it's weird. I just have this gut feeling that that's the way it's going to go.
Well, because they've also, they've tried the much more high concept and riskier gamble of Caprica, where they showed life on the colonies in prior to the first Cylon War, even the creation of the first Cylon, and it didn't quite fire on all cylinders. It was extremely ambitious what they were trying, and yet it didn't quite click, right? So it gave us that view of artificial intelligence, cybernetics, murder mystery was a big sense of it. A little bit of the sort of the politics between the different colonies, and yet it almost felt like they were doing too much with too little in a sense.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole concept of the AI resurrection, I guess, because I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the names, but he had the daughter died, and then he resurrects her essentially in the virtual space.
Yeah. Which
Bolt. I mean, I'm sorry, that thing that just did not work for me at all. There was that cult inside.
Yeah, that was so weird, dude. That was just like the weirdest thing.
Well, that's actually because Caprica appears to be high concept, but is actually low concept, because high concept is the easiest for anyone to grasp. That's like its definition. But when you're dealing with mind transfers, artificial intelligence, and the geopolitical state of what that means, that's hard for your average person who's channel surfing to stop and be allured to. It's great for us who are like huge into the science fiction and nerdy aspects of those things, but
you need to bring it in.
Yeah, it needs to bring. You need that universal hook that says, "Hey, this is a show for anyone," and it just happens to be geared towards a science fiction topic. Like that's what Star Trek originally was. It's just a crew on a ship traveling the galaxy. It was really easy to get behind, and then all the cerebral stuff just kind of crept in there and went down to the case. And just like with Jack's comic, it's a high concept comic. It's an A-team secret agency fighting evil throughout the world in a future time with crazy, who knows what type of villains. And like, that's kind of what lures people in.
And to what you're saying, referencing the Star Trek stuff, part of the beauty that the original series that the others didn't was it was absolutely campy and silly. At the same time, it actually had some of the deepest metaphorical, metalogical, theological, socio-political debates.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In the middle of all the campy, even on ones with like the and all that, and the silly, crazy, and all that, there were such deep storylines underneath it all. Again, except for Spock's brain.
Yeah, Kronos brings up an interesting comment. Interesting how politics worked for the Expanse. Politics has done so well in the Expanse.
There's a right and a wrong way to put some political messaging in without turning it into propaganda, without turning it into bias extreme to one side.
Because there's the politics of these like I guess moral plays of like different conceptions of morality that you're trying to force feed in terms of agenda politics or woke politics, or there's the politics of the Expanse, which is the politics of scarcity, right? That's just varying interests competing over scarce resources, which is much more akin to actual real world politics if we were to just kind of break away from sort of the labelization. I mean, you can look at Syria right now, and that's literally what's going on.
The world is warring over resources. It's warring over land. It's warring over food when you're starving. It's fighting.
Yeah, and that's the Expanse.
Both sides really are desperate, and both sides really feel they have a reason to. Is when it really gets deep and it really gets heavy and it really gets complicated.
Right. But also the fun part about the Expanse is like. Nope, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, from the perspective of the Expanse, I don't get the sense that there's anyone who's really like, I'm Team OPA or I'm Team UN, Earth, or I'm Team Mars. it's more like no, like you have favorite characters, but you're interested in the complexities because there's no good guys or bad guys in that. I do kind of like OPA sometimes, but then they do kill civilians, so there's that.
I was definitely more growing up more into things like Malin Engel and Henline and those where they really dealt with a lot of that and really showed you the humanity of both sides in most every issue.
Yeah.
I actually I have to bounce here because my wife is just getting home and I promised her that I would spend a little time with her before
okay.
Right.
Well, Jack,
thank
you.
Day, which is just my Sue greeting I give everybody. It's the full one I gave you at the beginning is I bid you good day and a long and prosperous life.
Well, thank you. Same to you.
And Jack, before you jet, feel free to let folks know how they can get behind the campaign for the book and where exactly to find the book and find you on socials and find out anything they need to about you.
Yeah, biggest is just indiegogo.com/Agent Poso. And my Twitter is just my first name and last name, Jack Posobiec, Posobiec. So again, really appreciate being on with you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll come on sometime. We've got a little bit more time, and just can't wait to see what comes next.
Yeah, Jack, because dude, next time I talk to you, I got to get your thoughts about Treadstone. I don't know if you got a chance to check it out, but yeah, I got to pick your brain about what you thought of Treadstone.
I'm going to dig in. All right. I'll hear you that next time.
All right, buddy. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks, Jack.
So there we were, folks. That was our special guest, Jack Posobiec. Big thanks to him for coming on, hanging out with us, because, man, we had a good time with Jack. And he's a good dude. He knows his stuff. He's a passionate patriot, but he's not over the top political, and I respect Jack a lot. So big thanks to him for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to him coming back again later. His link to his comics in the chat, I put it there, so check it out. And if you want to support, there you go.
All right, so
that political, I have to get into the reasons why pop culture matters in politics, because that is unfortunately the issue we're in right now.
And it's also a double-edged sword with regards to politics. I mean, so it's basically some oppression comes with the great art, but the cost is quite high. And when there's a lot less conflict, there's a lot less expression. So I don't know. It's
that fine line between proper politics and where you humanize both sides, you show the theological, the theoretical, you really put that in there well, versus just full propaganda. The modern movies are just propaganda without actually showing the humanity of both sides. But I look back even to the end of the old Star Trek movies era, before they did Nemesis and destroyed it.
Well, the TNG movies I don't consider canon.
Insurrection actually really handled well the concept of forcing people out for the greater good. It was based on a lot of the old stories that Roddenberry wrote because he was a friend of the Sioux tribe and actually spent a lot of time on the res.
Well, Insurrection Story was kind of done a lot better in the actual TNG series.
And I don't agree with that, but I appreciate the movie because I know where they took it from. And I know that it came from direct writings he did when he was on the res around my family.
Oh, yeah, like it definitely tackles a really passionate subject matter.
There's definitely a little personal bias to that movie because Gene Roddenberry was absolutely, all his flaws aside, he was a really good friend to the Sioux tribe, and he took a lot of the culture and embedded it in multiple cultures in his shows.
Oh, yeah, he was the exact opposite of his father. Like, his father had good morals, but was very much like, it's all about his type of people, and Gene could never grasp that concept because as a kid, he was like, yeah, let's just help everybody, because his dad was kind of saying, let's help everybody, but his everybody was very, really limited. And Gene just never learned that part of the lesson to his credit. And when he got into the Second World War and he started meeting other people, and that kind of really expanded his perspective on things. And yeah, I mean, he has a lot of flaws. There's no denying that. His ego being the biggest one of them, but he worked with some really great people, Gene Alcoon and DC Fontana.
He was.
Oh yeah.
So, but there's a lot of things in the Vulcan and Klingon culture that he even wrote about that he took directly from interacting with the Sioux tribe and doing outreach on the Red.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's lots of things for that, and also how they were used in allegory with other nations and other peoples. I mean, it was a nice little blending to make it not entirely specific, but at least familiar.
Yeah. So I have a bias to him, even with the issues I have with some of the stuff he did. I'm very biased to him because he was so good to my people, my family, and
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with having a bias to someone that does good and actually does not really encourage harm on other people. I mean, that's the one thing. Like he wasn't like great to your people and then said, "Oh, screw everybody else." Like that would be something of conflict. But he was more like, "Yeah, I'm great to these people. I'm going to help them out. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to earn their respect. They can earn mine, and make it a mutual thing." And that was kind of how what he was actually doing. Oddly enough, was a very, very old sentiment from the early 1800s. Now, sadly, that sentiment has been renamed and repurposed into something else, which all three of us absolutely hate, which is basically communism, Marxism, and what we know as socialism. But what originally socialism was, and don't hate me for this, but it was coined by Henry de Saint-Simon, a count in early 1800s France, and it was all about equal opportunity to create more wealth. The perversion of what it became later from Karl Marx and them is nothing like it, but it's now the dominant definition of it. So
right.
The problem was, even
and it
with
blurs the lines for everybody else. Yeah,
lost the sight of the fact that it didn't handle the human components well, even in the original definition.
Well, it wasn't even supposed to replace anything. It was supposed to be an augment to capitalism, paralleled with industrialism. And industrialism is about efficient production with a reliable product. So if you have equal opportunity.
I actually know what you're talking about on that stuff.
Oh, great. So then like if you have equal opportunity to create and be educated, and then from that creation you use the strategy of industrialism for being efficient and reliable, then the free market determines your success, and it just kind of works in tandem with each other. And it was all about just making sure that everybody had education, and if you went to the sciences or the STEM fields, you would have a higher class of respect, but you wouldn't necessarily be like an elitist or anything of that nature. And it was just up to your own work ethic to elevate your position. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's been conflated over the last 100 years by jerks like Karl Marx and the people around him that are trying to figure out a way to solve this as a replacement, as opposed to just have it being a support system.
The difference between a socialized structure that fits actually what would be, to me, more known as the true tribalism, because I get mad at people misusing that term as a negative too.
Oh, yep.
That's one of my rants. And again, it's because modern culture redefines things. But if true tribalism was never about shutting out other groups outside of it, it was about propping up and taking care of your own, and then using that strength you've built within to help the world.
Yeah. It was about stability, shared resources, shared responsibility, guidance, working together, teamwork. That was the best part of what that traditional tribalism was. And then even with towns and neighboring things, if someone felt like, hey, we're suffering because of this circumstances out of our control, then you'd have someone that is stable, able to reach out and lend a hand without both sides being crippled. It's about bringing someone else up, and then from those people you bring up, they reciprocate and help you in some way, either deliberately or inadvertently. You don't know. It doesn't matter.
Homesteader and rural areas actually work, because you can't survive living in the mountains on these homesteads and in these little tiny homes and families trying to run a ranch unless you trade and interact more depthly with your neighbors. That's just how that lifestyle is, because I'm the mountain girl here.
And it also comes down to a quote from On the Edge of Tomorrow, which is the three most important words, more important than I love you, which is let me help. And the best people to help are the ones that kind of got their crap together. So,
and I was talking about with that, the reason I liked him so much is because he was a good friend to the Res, which is the same reason why I'm still so much a fan of Val Kilmer's, because he spent so much time doing stuff for the Res after they did Thunderheart, and he was so good to everybody when he did it.
Well, yeah, Val Kilmer's just an all-around great guy. I'm actually looking forward to seeing his mute performance in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
You know that actually he had a restraining order against Rade on Psych for years because the guy acted too much like a Psycho fan. That he
No, I
stirred
did
it.
not know that.
And that restraining order was still in effect. He pulled it the day they were filming the final episode and showed up on set and offered to do a part for the episode.
Oh, wow.
Rade said he almost pissed himself on set. He's like, it turns around and there's Val Kilmer standing there saying hi to him after he's been told to stay away from him for the last 6 years. And he's like, because he said, yeah, I had reason to feel creeped out by him. He did cross the line, and even Rade says he did. But the fact that he did that and then went in to give him support at the end and stuff, I thought was just absolutely classy. So he's in the last episode of the Psych series.
Interesting.
Yeah, I haven't seen Psych in a while, but because the one scene from Psych I strongly remember is like the monk reference in that house where he like they're saying he organized all the cereals in the cupboard or something like that, and I'm like, that was pretty cool.
Hey, Kronos, I'll be your Huckleberry.
Oh, God.
I'm obsessed enough with Psych that I actually spent time tracking down and ordering the rare collector set off of Dule Hill's certified account from the ones they gave to the cast for my husband.
Well, really quick, guys.
So,
yeah, really quick, guys. Those of you guys out there watching, if you want to help the channel, I realize I'm not monetized yet. I did link it in the chat earlier, but you can do PayPal.me/Supreme Heretic, and you can help out that way because like I said, I'm not monetized.
There is no way in hell I should have more subs than he does.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, I'm a starving writer. I'm struggling, and we all need to keep the lights on. And it also helps my mom, who's a cancer patient and has medical issues. So it does help. Anything that we get helps offset our costs for food and medicine. So,
that's
thank you.
The way I am with my art is it funds things for my godkids and helping my parents with their disabilities and dad's muscular dystrophy and stuff. So I get that.
But even if you guys are just hanging out, kicking it, man, every time that you come in here, this is the start of something great. And you guys really, I love each and every one of your company. And I appreciate just the support, the moral support is wonderful, so thank you much. Kronos, she's lived with cancer and leukemia both for a long time. My mom's a fighter. She just recently, I think the strokes that she's had in the past year have taken more toll on her, I think, than leukemia. She's hanging in there against leukemia and her thyroid cancer pretty good, but it's the strokes that take a lot out of her these days.
It's always
and her heart issues.
Has those kinds of issues because anytime you're not with them, you're worried if you're going to see them again. Because I know that's how it's always been with my dad, because we were told when I was a kid he wouldn't live to the age of 30.
But
and it just, no, we don't, Mark. Read the books. No, we don't.
But that's I just wanted to say, I appreciate you all and thank you much. But to go back to what we were discussing, what I actually wanted to get into, because we only got a half hour real quick, is all right, Script Doctor, I know you checked it out. What did you think of Treadstone? I don't think Rosetta saw it.
I didn't even know that was going to be part of your topic here until I think
10 minutes before.
Oh, technically you told me about an hour before while I was running a stream.
Yeah, so. But yeah, go ahead, Script Doctor.
Well, it reminded me a lot of Heroes, And there's a funny story about that because in 2004, a whole bunch of us writing students across 6 different colleges from the East Coast to the West Coast were all individually working on our own shows that followed a similar narrative structure, which is called the inciting episode. So the first episode was the inciting act for multiple characters. And mine was actually a Star Trek version where it was about Kirk on his first day of the USS Republic, and a couple of other characters going into like the Academy, and Spock on his assignment before joining the Enterprise. And that was the first piece of a pilot I ever wrote, which I submitted to Paramount, which got me an internship, which then got cut off halfway through when Paramount split. So and then shortly thereafter, Heroes came out, and it's doing the same type of formulaic structure. It's got a whole bunch of different characters from different points of time, kind of converging on one sort of mystery box type of plot. And I really like the choreography and the cinematography. I thought that was fantastic. Difficult to kind of get a grasp on the acting because we didn't see the same character long enough throughout the entire show, but it definitely piqued my interest. It was nice to see good old Ensign Rowe.
Dude, yes. Michelle Forbes slayed in the stuff that she had. I really liked, how she was like the point woman in the room when they were, sort of coordinating there. And oh man, yeah, that was awesome seeing Admiral Kane.
Yeah, and it was pretty good. I'm actually I think this first season, if they keep it up, the first season will be really good. I don't know if they're going to be able to sustain it for a second season. I think this first season is going to resolve that whole plot with the stiletto. And then after that, they're probably going to have to either do a big reset like Fargo did, with like another completely different storyline, a different set of characters, a different type of
different set of agents.
Yep. And I hope they do. I hope they go that way. I'd rather have it being like different pockets of these types of cells and their individual story than trying to follow the same character over 6 or 7 seasons, because Heroes failed doing that. Like that first season of Heroes was good, but season 2, 3, Reborn.
Yeah. I like that sort of idea of like having like a microburst type of season where it would be like, you just have this one group and you see their story, and then the next season you get a whole fresh new group and a fresh new story. I mean, that would be cool, dude. And then that would actually work really well if they decide to make, which obviously at some point there's going to be another Bourne Universe movie. And you can run a movie well alongside that very easily.
Yep. Or you could have what's called a culmination season. So say you have 5 seasons of 5 different cells with 5 different groups of characters, and that 6th season is all of them come together for one epic story.
That too.
And that's kind of how you do a blowout. Now, and that's something that I pitched to Warner Brothers in 2008 for a DC TV series, where I didn't want to focus on one character. I wanted one season to be about one character, and then the season 7 would be like the Justice League.
Yeah.
And they kind of liked it. I got to my second tier, but then afterwards they're like, no, we're not going to go TV right now.
Oh man.
And then they did Arrow the year later.
But honestly, guys, for those of you that haven't seen Treadstone yet, and the Script Doctor and I got an opportunity to watch it, the show is pretty well done. Obviously, it is in the Bourne. If you've seen the Bourne movies, which most of us have seen, the Bourne series, most people that actually like the Bourne movies don't really count the Jeremy Renner flick, but we've seen it. But anyhow, the overarching story is it kind of explains the Treadstone program and kind of deep dives into different agents and how it works. And we're starting, we're getting introduced right now to some of the different agents in the first episode. And then, of course, they're going to connect the dots to the whole conspiracy behind it and so on and so forth. So the show, I thought, came off really well. The only thing that I think is, again, we were thinking about high-thinking shows, Script Doctor. I think this show moves a little fast for somebody that would just come in that's not already familiar with the Bourne series, they might be scratching their head just a little.
Well, I watched it with my sister, and she's not familiar with the Bourne series at all. And yeah, she was a little confused during the first act, but once we got into that midsection where we started seeing some of the other characters, then went to North Korea, she was kind of able to follow along as to what's going on. So, I mean, and that's kind of one of the things you need to do with a show, especially when it's related to IP, is try to make it as stable or standalone as it can. Yeah, sorry, and pull people in. And I will say this: if you haven't seen the show, check it out. I'm pretty sure you can like still stream it on like a USA website, network, what have you. There's the last act is absolutely fantastic, and they did a subtle makeup job in the very last shot, which you never see on characters of this type when they go through that type of situation. So it's really refreshing. And yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you, but we'll do spoilers for that episode maybe next week, I guess.
Hey, yeah, Brian, man, welcome, dude. Welcome. So
Brian's in the house.
Brian is indeed in the house. So as soon as he gets his mic up and running, we will get his take on it. See what Brian thought of it, and then I'm excited to hear.
Working now.
And special thanks out to Tommy for putting our YouTube channels in the chat.
Yeah, it got you.
There he is.
Tommy's
Sorry about that.
Tommy's doing God's work tonight.
Yeah,
man.
Tommy's on fire.
He is. So
actually, I got to watch the pilot through. I watched it on USA streaming. That was pretty nifty in and of itself. I thought it was actually really good.
Yeah.
I hadn't really had any interest in any of the Bourne Identity kind of universe for a long time. Like I read some of the books about 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought that was really interesting. But like, I really went into this blind after Drew told me our homework for the week, and I was like, oh, okay. And I can't lie, I was pleasantly surprised. It was good to see the guy from Stargate Universe.
Yeah,
It's good to see him working. Like, yeah, it seems like more and more, like I'm starting to realize I have a fondness for Canadian actors.
Well, we were talking just before you came in here, Brian. We were talking about Script Doctor and I were talking about Michelle Forbes, aka Admiral Kane from BSG and Ensign Rowe from Star Trek: The Next Generation, and we were commenting on how it was so cool at the beginning, like she was, sort of in charge, like in the ops center in that particular scene. And
okay, so she was the, I guess she was the lead agent.
She was like, when they were
control.
It was more in the
Okay.
beginning, yeah. It was more, in the first act, I believe. Yeah, she was.
Okay, the one with the pinky, right?
No, that wasn't her. She was had the dark hair. She was the very beginning. She was in the like situation room type of overseeing the journalist interrogation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do. Yep.
It felt like there's a lot of there's starting to be a lot of intersecting roles with people from previous shows where they're like starting to cross over with each other, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's common though, but
I think it's the same casting director who worked on all those shows because
probably.
like currently right now I'm in Canada and I'm actually going to be working on a TV show that's shooting here right now next week, so I probably won't be able to make the stream. But one thing I do know is that U.S. productions don't typically like to hire Canadian actors. They prefer to stick with American actors and then ship them out to Canada to do their productions. So when you do see a Canadian actor on there, they're probably the best damn person to audition for the role. So when you do see that, it's kind of like a holy crap moment. Because like I have friends who are in Toronto and who are in Vancouver who audition for US shows all the time, and most of the time it's like we can get somebody a bit more recognizable from the US and just fly them out here than worrying about paying you directly. So that's what ends up happening. They end up relocating to California, working there 2-3 years just to get work back in their hometown.
Right?
Yeah, it's not great. It never used to be that way. It all changed in like 2003, 2004 when Bush changed the whole immigration stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, you also notice that's a big shift in performance talent around that time as well. Because like even actors from Australia and the UK weren't coming to the US as often to work in shows and movies.
I wanted to say though, man, I am really like I don't know about you guys, but something that really stuck out with me and resonated with me in that show is like, I don't know, I got really invested in that one particular story arc with the Korean lady.
Oh yeah, the piano teacher.
Yeah, she. I don't know, man. I'm really invested in that one, and like Brian said, the character, the guy from Stargate Universe.
Well, yeah.
What really got me with the Korean character was when she went to do her part, and the guy was like, "Wait, they woke you up and didn't tell you anything?" I was like,
okay. I know. I was like, "Oh snap! What?"
Yeah, all she got was an
this
address.
might be a fun trip down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, like totally. And that conflict in that bathroom was like top notch, man.
Oh yeah.
Like you don't ever see things choreographed like that where they take into account the size of the actor.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like usually it's like, you know, a spoon-shaped woman who's like 105 pounds beating up someone 3 times her body weight. Like there's nothing. And I'm just like, no, come on, man. Like if this was like a Docker
pretty
comedy,
good struggle.
She'd be like hitting like a brick wall. Like the guy would just be standing there motionless.
Yeah, I did. I feel you on that, Mark. I was too. I was a little worried when she got called the best agent, but I think we're gonna find out a whole lot more. It's really interesting.
I think she might be the best in the sense of infiltration, not really execution.
Yeah.
Right.
My hope is that, man, script doctor, I wish they would send just the footage from that sequence to somebody at Lucasfilm or just somebody anywhere that decide to make a female character. Like, okay, this is how you realistically have choreographed a scene of female versus male or smaller person versus larger person. And it's believable.
And also, they don't need to pick the skinniest, flattest figured, nondescript women that don't look like they could pick up a sandwich to play these parts.
Well,
I mean, it works in this case for her because she's supposed to be a sleeper agent, easily disguisable. But like in the case of a superhero or someone that's supposed to have been like rigorously trained in like a military fashion or what have you, some size does sell the concept. Like you kind of want them to have like, shoulder muscles, like look like Vasquez in Aliens, right? Like that's something kind of. I mean, they made it sexy and badass, and that's what I kind of liked about that part. But we don't see it anymore.
Sleeper agents, as you were saying, they don't necessarily have to be bulky, strong, clearly work out everyday women, but
exactly, yeah,
they need to have some definition to their body that looks like they could do anything. Even if they're a tiny woman, to have a little form to her that shows that she's strong and has muscle form.
Yeah, and if they can hide that well with the fashion so that it doesn't look so obvious, then you've got yourself a winner. Yeah.
Well, as I said,
they did fairly good with it.
Yeah.
Out. It's just what I've noticed in a lot of these recently, and it's not. There's some that they're skinny, but you can see they've got muscle. You can see they're strong, like Gal, and there's some that you can see there's no strength on them, and you can be feminine and look soft and look normal, but still have some definition.
Yeah, like that was one of the things I brought up with one of my friends who works on shadow hunters. Like he's like, I'm saying, how can you believe that any of these people can fight against who they're fighting? And he's like, I don't know, man. The casting director likes him, and we just had to roll with it. And I'm like, did you ask the actors to maybe like put on some muscle weight or something? And he's like, no, they just don't have the times. And
like that picture of Portman holding up the
hollow wooden hammer.
It just looked so bad. It didn't look like she had the body to even try to pick it up. She looked like a little kid trying to hold up daddy's tools.
Yeah, but that just comes down to like two of many big problems. The first one being is that casting directors are not really looking for talent as much as they used to. They're looking for what would sell on a poster. And the other one being on the writing side is that the gatekeepers, which are readers working for studios or agencies or whatnot, have their own perspective of what they think should be made. So they pass up the same type of scripts or stories that are of a certain political ideology up above. And then the people up above are like, well, if I'm getting all these types of scripts that are leading this way, I guess that's what people want, but it's not, because I've worked as a reader and you get a lot of crap, and I mean a lot of crap, but it's all over this political spectrum. And if you put up what you think is the best one, that's fine. But if you have a whole group of these people who end up working as readers for maybe 2-3 years, that's 2-3 years of them pushing aside a specific agenda and kind of inadvertently manipulating Hollywood, thinking this is what audiences want. And then they get on that side. And then when they go to Twitter and they see it kind of paralleled there, and it just spins everything out of control. And that's why there's people like me and other production houses who are like, yeah, I don't believe the audiences want this type of thing. And when you do see something get made, think, even though it may be like crap, think about it this way. That was still the best of the crap that they got about that subject matter. Like, even if you think you can write better, and you probably could, out of everyone else that submitted in that time frame, that was still the best. And that's what's sad. And that's why Hollywood's really divided right now, because it's all the money players that are thinking this is what people want, and then it's all the people in the lower tiers who are like just trying to push that crap aside and put in something that's a bit more apolitical and just really entertaining. And that's kind of why horror is the only one that's kind of really holding into that realm right now. I mean, us but teetered over on that side, but luckily it didn't do so well. So that genre is still kind of safe for the next year or so.
Which, that's not my genre, so I'm still SOL.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like last Tuesday when I watched the Treadstone, I was pleasantly surprised from the fact that it felt really like fresh and different.
And it wasn't taking any other characters down, which was actually quite great for a TV show.
And dude, I have seriously, man, it's like trying to like lead a thirsty man to water, because I have been like desperate for something decent to watch lately, and it's like, hell yeah.
And it's on USA Network too. Like, that's also amazing.
Right.
Their good shows are few and far between, like a lot of networks. But I remember when they launched it and all they did was air Wings 24/7.
Well, yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Wings. I mean, Tim Daly's cool, but like
12
hours straight.
Give Steven Weber credit, because he's one of the few out there that, he's on the extreme side of politics, but he defends people on the other side too.
Yeah.
And we need more people like that.
Yeah.
You benefit more with an open hand than a closed fist. Like, that's just.
Because I don't care what people believe, as long as they'll treat me with respect, I'm gonna treat them with respect. Moira. Always with the inappropriate greeting.
But yeah, we got, I think, a pretty decent show on our hands, fellas. So
this is something to look out for.
I need a few minutes before I start my next one, and it's going to start at 10:10. You guys are still invited, like always, to come over and hang out with me some as an after party hangout.
Mm-hmm. It's the after party,
which I will, like always, drop the link here into the private chat for you guys.
Oh, yes. Hit me with the private chat, BB. But
sorry.
But no, we're getting ready to wrap, but
I got a jet now, so I will see you guys soon, hopefully.
Well, thank you, Rosetta. It was always great having your presence every week.
See you soon,
yes, Rosetta, we will see you later. Have fun on your next stream. And
Bye.
I hope you get some sleep after that.
Right.
Hell yeah. Hugs
Uh,
to you, Moira. But
Well, what's the final thoughts on Treadstone, guys? So,
well, my final thoughts is I think it's going to go somewhere. I think it's the story's interesting. I like how they're setting it up. The pacing's good so far. Yeah, it's got me wanting more, so that's good. As long as I have that feeling, like I need to see more now, then I know it's going to be good because that means the show's engaging me. I don't know, Brian. What are your thoughts?
I'm fairly excited about it. I can't lie. It doesn't seem like we get something of this caliber often enough anymore,
Yeah,
and
it's true.
it feels like it's kind of like this perfect confluence where everything's coming together at once, and like nothing about it really makes sense to me, honestly. Like just kind of looking at it, the network it's made for. The kind of odd assortment of actors that they grabbed. Like you have a couple of like B and C people, like where you
Mhm.
recognize from like character pieces in the past,
Sure.
but like there's people I don't recognize at all, and they're doing awesome. And
Yeah.
like I actually watched it. I thought they did fairly good with the casting of the character roles. Like the Korean gal, like she's a piano teacher, so North Korean piano teacher is going to be tiny and slender. And like script doctor said, the way they wrote the fight scene was perfect. It made sense. Like she didn't just miraculously choke him out
I
of
know.
nowhere. The move that she pulled with the I guess it was what the belt from a robe
yeah, I think it was a belt from a
and
robe. Yeah.
the
That
foot.
was
I'm like,
that was
that actually took me back to some of the martial arts classes I took. I'm like, well, she's doing everything perfectly the way she should.
I know. I was like, "Are you serious?"
Uh,
Because I
I'm
was
really
just
hoping the best for it.
I was just in awe of that sequence because it's just one of those things where it's just like, man, this is freaking like the. I mean, like this scenario, it's just so realistic. I was like, man, this is great.
Before I get
Yeah.
too far off topic, I want to finish up. The one of the other things that really caught my attention was if you paid attention to the driller up in Alaska, his sequence when it seems like they've set up a kind of a set piece with the music that plays to activate the cicadas.
Mm-hmm.
And like when it's sung in French, it seems to activate them. But if it's sung in English, where it's "Are you sleeping?" instead of Frere Jacques, which I mean,
Mm-hmm.
let's not even get into that. But it seems like when it's put in English, it actually has like a almost like a sedative effect. If you notice how it reset him and kind of like wiped the last little bit of his memory of what was going on and what he was doing before she sang it. So that seems like it's going to be a little interesting tool that they're going to be able to use, hopefully, and incorporate that later on in the show too.
Yeah, I like that too, man. And I don't know about you guys, but it kind of gave me this weird, like, sort of like old school, like Stephen King movie kind of vibe, where like the gentleman with the hearing aid when
Right?
he found that thing under his property. And I don't want to get too spoilery, and that's why I'm kind of trying to be careful of what I'm saying. But when the wife confronted him and what happened right there,
Oh yeah.
that it gave me an old, like, kind of like classic horror movie vibe, like kind of like one of those old Stephen King movie kind of vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of got that too. Yeah, that episode had a couple of great cliffhangers. The other one being the syringe and the drain. That
Yeah,
caught
that
there.
too.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but I loved how the pianist, the pianist, the North Korean piano teacher, she had a bruise on her cheek.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like that's
Oh.
amazing. You never see that.
Well, yeah, exactly. You made another good point, SD. Like I mean, where's the attention to detail? A lot of times these shows like miss that, but just a perfect little attention to detail.
Yeah, and it also
So
shows
so
the
much
stakes.
in
Like she's
immersion.
not invulnerable. So, I mean, yeah, like there's a couple of those little things throughout the entire episode, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to this. I've got high hopes for this season. I don't. If they keep up the quality, it's not going to drop the ball, and it's going to have a great like winter break. Like it's definitely going to leave you on something that you're going to be wishing those 6 weeks fly by before the next episode picks up. But I do hope that they resolve this plot out for this season, and then cross my fingers that they give us a whole new set of characters for season 2 if they follow it up, so that we don't end up falling into a boring, repetitive cycle of storytelling with these same, I guess, 4 characters that we're technically following, 4 main characters.
Yeah, it looks like 4 basically right now. You know, I guess like, is that counting or not counting the like 1973 footage or whatever?
I think I'm counting the 1973 because it's that guy, the North Korean piano teacher, the Alaskan guy, and then I guess the journalist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're okay. Yeah, we're at more than. But yeah, guys, we're gonna probably call it for the night. But I want to thank everybody for hanging out and watching the stream and supporting and just your company. And I hope that we were as equally as entertaining to you guys as you were helpful and supportive of us. And hopefully we will be able to, we will get a good special guest for next week as well. If Script Doctor can make it, he'll be here. Brian will be here with me. Rosetta will be here with me. And we'll no doubt have an interesting person to join us. So we will definitely talk about the next episode of Treadstone. You can count on that. So, all right.
Yes, and special thanks to Mark Lisseth and Tommy and Kronos, and we got Tabitha in the chat. So thank you very much for listening to us.
My dear friend Tabitha, big shout out to you, Tabitha Parks. Oh, Tabitha, I love you. Mwah! We've been friends for so long. She's family. A decade plus, man. A wonderful friend of mine. So, I will see everybody soon. And Moira, much love to you, my dear. And good night, guys. Kronos,
Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.